YouTube, this is Flyfish. Just want to give you an update on the pile battery. It's been sitting out overnight, and just want to show you the voltage in the morning. We've got nuts, next to nothing. So, in any event, I do believe the critical crux of the issue is moisture. So, these may be being called a crystal battery, but truth be told, it is still relying upon a fluid electrolyte, albeit in perhaps minuscule proportions. But suffice to say, this battery that had 3 volts yesterday is now down to nothing. However, the difference is when you look at my crystal cell number 4, quote-unquote crystal cell, there is definitely still voltage in there, and it does bounce back even after shorting. So here is my crystal cell number 4 that I made yesterday, and I will place the electrodes on the multimeter, and so there you see 1.65 volts coming from the crystal cell. But again, this one here has an internal moisture supply, and the silica gel is at least keeping it there. I'm not seeing any form of oxidation of the copper nor the magnesium. So when you look very closely here, there's no greening out of the copper electrode, and the magnesium electrode here as well. I don't know if we can get a good picture of it. See if we can get it to focus down. But suffice to say, there's no apparent oxide layer that I can see, or any deterioration of the copper. And again, this little area of silica gel could be acting as a fluid reserve and be helping things, but obviously if the batteries are allowed to just dry out, and I have a dehumidifier running in my basement here which helps pull all the moisture out of the air, so it's going to suck it from everywhere it can including these layers of electrolyte, which are now dry as a bone, hard as a rock, but we're not getting any voltage across this. And again, I'll try to show this one more time, that we have that and this, and we're getting nothing. I'll even reverse it just for grins. We got nothing. So the pile battery I consider a failure without any form of fluid. Now what I'll do later on tonight is I'll see if we can revive it with a little bit of fluid. But again, we'll see if we can see any type of current, microamp current out of this. Now that's interesting, isn't it? So we have excuse me, pardon me, we have 16 milliamps of current, yet no form of voltage. Now that's interesting. Very, very interesting. So, for what it's worth, we have to continue exploring these things and see really what's going on. Good evening, YouTube. This is Flyfish. Just want to show you, again, this is the resting voltage of the pile cell with the salts that are completely dried out. They're dry as a bone. So we're not getting any voltage out of this, but we are getting a little bit of current. At least we did this morning when I checked it. So I'll double check the current reading. Just set thusly. Turn it on. So we're still getting 14 milliamps current. Now what I'm going to do, and I'm proposing this as a test, I'm going to move this back to the voltage here. To the 20 volt marker, where we're registering that. I'm going to wet the crystals. Again, see if we see any voltage rise. I just have a little syringe filled with nothing but tap water, and I'm going to re-wet this, and we'll see what shows. Get the voltage to go up. Oh, there she is. Now just a quick drop of water and you saw what happened. So it went up very quickly. So now this is what that's showing. It's quite amazing actually where it's rising to. So I just quickly got that a little bit wet. Just a couple, less than a half a cc. And we're at 3.77, 3.76. So we'll see where it equilibrates to. Now I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to load it. I'm going to let this sit for about an hour and see where this goes. So now it's dropping back down to about what the original voltage was before having it go to 0. So let's see what happens. And again, it's a firm argument that these crystals, in whatever configuration they happen to be, and this is still dry, I mean it's not moist, it's not wet or flooded by any stretch of the imagination. They have to have a bit of fluid in it to get the positive ions to move, I believe. So in any event, there we are at 3.58 volts, and we shall see how it looks after a few hours. So I just thought you might find this interesting. Oh, again, I forgot, also what I'll do is I'll check the current at this point in time as well. So I'll shut this off, switch this over, the same setting as we had before, and let's see where the current is now. Yeah, much higher. So we're back up again at the original current level, double what we had when it was dry. So there you are, and we've sort of revived this, as it were. Again, obviously didn't leak through, it was imbibed completely. And that's the current level. Again, 3.5 volts. Alright, there you go. Okay guys, this is just the pile cell after the salt crystals have been hydrated a bit. And again, I'm using just a simple LED here, and we're getting about 3.5 volts. So we'll overdrive this just a little bit, but you'll see the addition of the LED across the pile, as it were, here and here. So you see it's running super bright, so about 3.5 volts, no problem. Plenty bright. But suffice to say, again, the liquid is super critical on this. So what I'm going to do is I've moisturized this to the point of almost saturation on one side, and we'll see where it goes. And I'm going to let it dry out again. We'll watch the voltage dissipate, and eventually I'm going to tear this apart to see what happens as far as if there's any pitting or otherwise corrosion, which I'm assuming and anticipating as a reality to this type of cell. So in any event, as this zinc oxide and Epsom salt mixture dries out, we have no voltage. Add a tiny drop of water, as I've shown, and it jumps right back up. So the question is this: upon heating, we can heat these salts and mix them to make a polycrystalline form. Is it necessary for us to have it applicated to the metals and electrodes in the hot molten form, or is it something at that point in time, once they have been reduced and combined vis-a-vis heat, can we simply dissolve them in water to make an ultra-thin coating instead of attempting to put it in a molten form in between the electrodes? So The difficulty that I had to get a very uniform thickness here has to do with the very short working time in the molten state. But if we're able to mix the combination of the Epsom salts or salt salts or zinc oxide at that point in time and then hydrate it, paint on an infinitely thin layer, will we have a benefit? So that's something also to consider with the fabrication of these cells. So for what it's worth, thanks again for watching. Okay, YouTube, this is again the quasi-rehydrated pile cell that I have the magnesium, the zinc oxide, and Epsom salt mix. This is the milliamp output right now. And again, just to show you, this is the LED. It's very bright. That's the loaded voltage, or I should say the loaded milliamp with the LED on there. And you remove the LED and it should bounce right back up. To around 40 milliamps. So the surface area of the electrodes is critical to the current flow. My cell here produces, a definite static 1.56 to 1.67 volts and about 20 to 25 milliamps no matter what, and there's again no sign of oxidation here, so the magnesium looks the same, the copper looks the same. Just when this dries out, we lose all voltage except for the current, and you rehydrate it, and lo and behold, by golly, it makes all the voltage and current that it did at any one point. Again, we can switch the voltage. So there is the unloaded voltage, about 3 point something when all things are said and done. Loaded voltage about 1.6. Unloaded voltage should bounce right back up there. So, for what it's worth, hydration, necessary part of this. So it's not like John's pure crystal cell that he melted at high temperature. These require fluid. Now, can we use a different fluid than water? That's an interesting question. And is there any type of polar or non-polar solution we can use to have this work? Something to think about.